Hello everybody and welcome to a tablet weaving tutorial. This came about because one of the girls on a Facebook group that I'm a member of said that she was struggling with getting started with tablet weaving, and I thought, great opportunity to do a how-to video. So I've got on the table just the things that you need to start tablet weaving. You need the all-important mug of coffee, or tea. I'm going to put that to one side. You need a pair of scissors. You need your actual tablet weaving cards, which I'll talk about in a minute. Some wool. I'm using 2 colours. And a shuttle with wool attached. Now the shuttle I'm using is massive. I lost my original shuttle. I've already put some wool onto the shuttle. Shuttles are pretty much very generic, they're all the same. This one's actually quite good because it's quite thin. But yes, I lost my original smaller shuttle, so I'm going to have to make do with a massive one, which might be a bit awkward, but never mind. We will do that. We'll work around it. Another thing that is completely optional, I'm going to put my scissors to one side because I don't need those at the minute, is one of these. A loom. Now this is completely optional. I have this because my dad made it for me, because I have a very, very kind dad. I'm just going to arrange it so you can see what I'm going to be doing later. You don't need this, but it is very, very, very useful to have. When I'm doing tablet weaving at home, I like to do it on this because it helps me keep my tension. But you can use the backstrap method, which is attaching the yarn to your waist, to a belt, and then the other end to an immovable object, or you can do it between chair legs, or whatever you can find that helps you keep your tension. So I suppose we should talk about what tablet weaving is for those people who've clicked on my video and don't know what it is, what I'm doing. Tablet weaving is a very, very old form of weaving, and it's done by using these cards. These ones are my cards. They are made from plywood. They are very sturdy, but you can do them. If you want to try tablet weaving and you don't want to splash out on any money, then use the strap method. You attaching it to yourself, attach the yarn to yourself, and then the other end to a chair or something that won't move, and use playing cards for your tablets. You can easily punch holes in playing cards. In fact, playing cards were actually used. There's evidence of them being used early 20th century. I think one's been found, and there's evidence of tablet weaving going right back to Viking times, with tablets being made from horn, from antler, even from bone. So it's a very old craft. It's a great craft. I love it. And it creates weavings that are quite thin. I mean, you can get some that are about that thick. It all depends on how many cards you use and the thickness of your wool. I'm using just basic shop bought wool. I would advise not using acrylic wool because it tends to fray ridiculously. I am using Sirdar Snuggly baby wool, which is very, very soft and creates a really nice trim. And we're only using 8 cards as well, so we're going to be creating a good size trim. I'm actually going to be using mine for a belt. So you can also sew them together as well. If you make multiple strands, you can sew them together to make wider materials. But in general, they were pretty much used. Hello, Jasper. They were pretty much used as trim, or as belts, or straps. And we've got a little somebody wanting to help. No, you can't help. I know he wants you. Get down. Get down. Good boy. Right. So I already have all my strands of yarn pre-cut. I'm using about 2 meters of wool, just to give you an idea of what to do, how to start, how to weave, etc. So, sorry, Jasper's got his toy, that's right. Okay, we're going to have a bit of interruption over there. Bit of weaving entertainment. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about are the tablets themselves. Now, when I held them up earlier, you might have noticed that they are marked with A, B, C and D. Now, the easiest way, I'm going to have to flip this over because I've got mine set up so that the blue is actually facing away from me. So if I flip it over, I'll show you on this side first. So I've got it set up so that I have a red mark. If I hold a few together, you should be able to see. I have a red mark on the side of the card that faces me, so I know that is always my starting position. So red mark facing me, that's my starting position. And that means that A and D are always on top. So A, which is this hole here, this hole, in my starting position is always the hole on top nearest me. That's always the starting position. When you look at patterns that show you how to thread, you'll notice, and here's your first bit of terminology, you'll notice that they often say S thread or Z thread. Now, that is simply a method of threading the cards. We're going to set our cards up and I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to start off by threading our first card. We are doing a very basic, very simple 8 card pattern. And my first card, I'm just going to get the thread for, there we go, get the yarn. Right, so I've already cut my yarn. We are using 2 colours, like I said before, we're using a sort of like a bluey grey and a sort of off-white, which are period colours to the time that I'm doing the 14th century. And we are going to start with our first card, and we are going to put the dark colours in A and in D. Okay, so our top card has A and D top colours. The other 2 have white, and it is S threaded. So I'm going to take one strand and I'm going to show you the difference between S thread and Z thread. The easiest way to think about S thread and Z thread, I'm going to hold the card this way so you can see. When you look at the card, the easiest way to think about an S thread is that the thread, we're going to do S thread first, the thread goes in an S around the card, through the hole and out the other side. The other easy way to think about it, and this is probably the easiest way to do it, is that if it is S threaded, the yarn goes in, I'm going to hold it up so you can see, goes from the back to the front. That's an S thread. A Z thread goes from the front to the back. So that is a Z thread. Now I actually want the cards to be facing this way because that's the correct way, with A being that way. So I'm going to S thread, remember S thread, from the front to the back. So it looks like that. And I'm going to S thread A and D with the darker colour, which is my blue. Just throw the yarn over the top like that. Oh, I've got an extra bit of wool there for some reason. And B and C. Again, S thread. Through like that. Okay, so that is my first card, S threaded. So A and D, remember, go this way. A and D on top, B and C on bottom. And all I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to rest the yarn over the top of my loom that way. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to tie a quick knot in the ends of the yarn. Go, and then just slide my card to the end and lay that down. That's my first card done. The next card is also S-threaded, and we are slightly different there. So we have A and B in blue, C and D in white. So I've got my two whites here, so let me just untangle these. And we have C and D in white. If you can't tell, by the way, I'm referring to my pattern over on my screen over there. You can find so many different patterns online. You can also make your own. But for starters and beginners, and I am so rusty because I haven't done this for so long, that I'm using a pattern that I found online that it just creates a simple chevron. And then I'm just going to tie my ends together. You don't have to be accurate as well. When you're cutting your yarn, you don't have to be accurate to a specific length. It's always better to cut more yarn than you actually need, because you can only weave to the shortest yarn that you've got. So always cut more yarn than you actually think you'll need. Also, don't worry too much about your A and D on top at the moment. You do need that, but you don't need to worry about it too much. I just like to have it organised as I'm laying it all out so I know where I'm up to. So those are the first two cards. Then in our third card we have B and C in blue and A and D in white. I'm actually going to stop recording here. I'm going to do the rest of the cards, or the rest of the S threaded cards, and then I'll do a couple of Z threaded cards to show you, just so you don't, this can take hours to actually do, so I'm not going to film all of this. Thread your cards and come back and join me when we are ready to do the the Z threaded cards. Right, so I've done all of my cards apart from two, which are the last two Z cards, and we'll do those together. A and B are dark, so because it is Z threaded, these ones, I'm coming in from the back. A and B. And then C and D are white. C. Sorry, I'm doing this so you can't see. There we go. C and D are white. The easiest way as well to tell if you're doing it the right way are, once you've finished doing all this and you put the knots in, let me just get my threads to the same length so I can tie them all together. S-threaded cards, you'll notice, it's a good way of checking to make sure you've done it the right way. S-threaded cards have the knot on the back, and Z-threaded cards will always have the knot on the front. So that's a good way of making sure that you've got it the right way round. So once again, I'll just do the last Z-threaded card, just so you can see. And this one, C and B are white, and D and A are dark. So B and C are white, so again I'm going from, this time from the back to the front. Behave. from the back, here we go, to the front. And again, from the back to the front. Tying them off, and the knot is on the front of the card. Okay, so just bring all the threads around to the other side so they don't get in the way. There we go. So there we've got our cards all done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set them up to start weaving. Very, very simple and easy way of doing this. I'm just going to use a piece of darker wool, just so you can see what I'm doing. And I am going to just select each card, draw out the knot, you don't need to worry at this point too much about which direction the cards are facing, just as long as they are in order. And you can do them in groups. If you have a large number of cards, you can do them in groups, just whatever's easiest to handle. So just draw out your knots here, and then all I'm going to do, just lay them down in order, is take a spare piece of yarn. Now this is a contrasting colour so I can see what I'm doing. Just tie that off, and then tie that end either to your belt, or in my case I'm tying it to my end of my loom here. Just to start with a bit of tension. Now my loom unfortunately is starting to lose its tension, but that's fine. Okay, I'm actually going to stand up and come around this side so you can see what I'm doing here. All I'm doing is just keeping them in order, or trying to, there we go. Just start by tensioning them off. There we go. And then just tying them off onto the opposite end of the loom. I'm trying to keep it fairly tight, but also even. So I'm going to come over so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to start by making sure that each card, I have the 4 from each card. And again, I'm not bothered about the cards turning around. They will turn around. I'm not bothered about that. I'm just bothered about tension. So I'm just going to move my cards around now. Get them to a point where I'm happy where I can move them around. And then I'm just going to turn them so they are all facing the correct way. So I'm going to turn them so my red is facing towards me, which is my easy way of marking the correct start. Also, another point about tension is the more you weave, the tighter it will get. So you don't need to worry, you will be loose at the start. Okay, there we go. So my cards are now all in the correct starting position. I'm just going to... Right. So now I can see that I have quite a lot of loose yarn there, so I'm just going to tighten that up a bit. Realign my cards because there was some movement there. Make sure they're not tangled. Lovely. Okay, so I'm just going to do that again. There we go. That's better. Now I'm happy with the tension. I can move my cards. There's no movement of the yarn. So now we've got the cards in the starting position, we need to start weaving. Now this is where one of the girls who was on the group I'm in was having trouble. So I'm going to start by taking my shuttle, my thread from my shuttle, and I'm just going to start by, in the loop that we created with our darker thread, I'm just going to tie that in. Just do that as a double knot just to make sure it's completely secure. Okay. Now before we actually start the weaving, I'm going to take my shuttle and I'm going to go through, here's another technical term for you, the shed. That's the gap between the yarn from the top holes in the tablet and the bottom hole. So that gap there, that's your shed. Now I'm just going to pop that through. Tighten up a bit and then use the actual cards themselves to beat down. Okay. Now the one that we're going to be doing, the pattern that we're going to be doing calls for 4 forward, 4 back. So we're going to do 4 turns forward. So the first thing we're going to do is first turn, move the cards forward and back to create the shed. Take our shuttle, push that through the shed, tighten it up a bit, don't pull too tight, beat down. Okay. Now it looks a bit strange here at the end. Don't worry, this bit always looks strange. It always looks weird until you've done the first 4 forward and the first 4 back. Always looks weird. So now we're on turn 2. Move them forward and back, create the shed, put the shuttle through. You can also use the shuttle as well to beat down, to get it really tight if you can. Use the cards to beat the shuttle. Third turn. Forward, back, shuttle through the shed. Tighten it a bit. Use the cards to beat. Last turn forward. forward, back, create the shed, put the shuttle through, beat that down, and now we're going to come back. So we've been turning forward, which is turning away from ourselves. Now we're going to turn back towards ourselves. So first turn back, forward, back, create the shed, put the shuttle through. It's usually easier if you hold the cards together to see the shed, but just so you can see what I'm doing, put the shuttle through. Use the cards to beat down. Another turn back, forward, back to create the shed, put the shuttle through, another turn back, and here you can see the reds come to the top of the cards, so I know I'm just one step away from finishing my first forward and back. I've got a clear shed. Pop the shuttle through. Forward and back. One more turn. And we're back to the starting position. Forward and back, create the shed, pop your shuttle through, and now you can see a pattern starting to appear on the actual weaving itself. So I'm going to do this a couple more times and then I'll do a close-up of the weaving so you can see how it looks. We're going to go forward and back. I'm going to go a bit quicker now so I'm not explaining it all the time. Just 4 forward, 4 back. So there you go. So I'm just going to zoom in now. This is how it looks once you've done a few forwards and backs. Now, this bit here, this is how it looks when you first start. So if you've done a few turns and it's looking weird and not working, then don't worry, it does do that to start with. Once you get your first 4 forward, 4 back, as you can see, it starts looking a lot better. And a lot of it is just practice, just keep working at it and keep practicing. So I really hope that was useful. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.